Hello and welcome to Vampire the Masquerade, Reckoning of New York. Perhaps you've played with me the first chapter here already where we played Kali, and today we're going to start playing with the second character. So I'm going to go here. His name is Pádraic, as I found out. It's probably the correct Irish pronunciation, but I sometimes call him Pádraic. So he's a Malkavian. I've never been this close to grasping the nature of my inner voices. The answer is almost within reach, yet I can't help but question. When the stakes are at the highest, do I truly have what it takes to suffer the cost? We want to find out how the story resolves from his perspective. So let's jump in. So as a Malkavian, he has a different disciplines. So he's actually a little bit older than Kali, so he has already some points in Dominate, Obfuscate, and Auspex. I suppose, I'm not sure, it doesn't say that I have available points, so I cannot actually choose anything. So it's all just pre-selected for me, that's fine. Pádraic relies on his caution and mysteriously liaison to avoid dangers and manage his hunger. So both are, I guess, turned off for some reason, that's fine. Night 1, the dragon. December 2024, 7 nights till New Year. The Brooklyn Bridge, shimmering in the East River at night, casts a hauntingly beautiful reflection. Despite witnessing countless global spectacles, there's an uncanny allure here. The flow of headlights. It reminds me of souls embarking on their eternal quest to Macmeal. Hard to pinpoint why, really, although it might be about the company soon to join me. I wish I were able to immerse myself in the scene, truly appreciate it, but tonight is not the night. I see myself as a patient man, unbothered by impulses, scornful of fleeting whims. Hell, I actively fight against those very ideals every second of my own life, with reason as my guide, resolve as my sword, and my ring as my shield. And I am accustomed to waiting here on the deck of this opulent ship, where I am expected to feel put into my place, to earn her precious time. Ritra, say what you might, those in the city wronged by her certainly do not mince words, knows very well how to maneuver power dynamics under constant pressure. The lesser players wait, while those in control choose when and where to make their appearance. And so, I wait. Normally, it wouldn't bother me. I know what paltry regard she has for me, but I am due elsewhere in half an hour, and this delay is making it impossible to be in Queens on time. The very idea of being late vexes me to the core, not only because I detest tardiness and being reprimanded for it, but also because it is utterly unbecoming of my position among the upper echelons of New York City. My role as a mediator between the Anarchs and Camarilla might seem superficial, empty perhaps, but this position was thrust upon me, scornfully, I might add. It's better to play along and show them what their disdain is hardly enough to undermine my resolve. I'm shaken out of my reverie by the sound of soft, clicking footsteps on the deck. It seems she has deemed to grant me an audience. Greetings, Vitra. She doesn't respond at first, slowly sizing me up, and clearly enjoying my unease. She's the only person in the whole presence I feel self-conscious about my perpetual slouch. Not that it matters. Even if I stood upright, she would still tower over me, like the mythical demon from whence she got her name. Forgive me for prying, but I'm already late for a council meeting. Is there a particular reason why you delayed me, put me on risk of arousing their suspicion? Ridra's face remains cold and inscrutable except for the corner of her lips, stretching minutely to half smile.
There is a reason behind everything I do, dear boy, as you know perfectly well. Shouldn't a fashionably late arrival at Elysium diminish your perceived threat?
No, it just makes me look like
A despised scatterbrain could hardly pose any danger to the ivory tower, yes? Now tell me, is there anything you'd like to share regarding the council?
I want to answer her, but suddenly all I can hear are the echoing voices in my mind.
Spill it. Tell her. Tell on them, lad.
My hand instinctively seeks out my dice ring and spins it violently.
You're nothing to them. Yeah, fuck them, boy. Fuck all of them.
It lands on the 20, and the glamour in my head stops. Thank God. I straighten my back just a little.
Spying on the council for you is not part of our agreement. I'm not one of your pawns in this game. Surely you can get all the information you need elsewhere.
She just smirks and stares at me unblinkingly with her unnerving, unmoving eyes. As much as I try to be stern, I'm not delusional. I know she could easily force anything she wanted out of me, but she probably won't. First, she wouldn't want to break her toy, especially one with so much potential. A second, since I have revealed nothing so far, she clearly must have another source of intel, but I have no idea where, despite my short private investigation on the matter. We stand in a prolonged tense silence with Vitra simply watching.
Has the voice manifested again recently?
I nod, just nod.
Tell me.
It is a command, not a request. Thankfully, it's one I'm glad to follow.
Forgive me, but it was all rather convoluted. I caught fragments about the price of pursuit, the asking, and the shadow of the Daystar, but I do not know what any of that means.
She nods to herself, her eyes still locked with mine, until I can't help but avert my gaze under the immense pressure. Then, surprisingly, for the first time tonight, it is she who turns away, looking thoughtfully to the horizon. And I can feel that rare impatience in me grow and fester like a wound.
What's the purpose of our meetings if you keep your insights to yourself?
Nobody is more surprised at this sudden outburst than myself, but the frustration forces me to move forward, even in spite of Vitra's slowly raising eyebrows.
I have to understand the nature of the voice. I need to know why it speaks to me and why it's different from all the others that I can control.
When Vitra faces me again, her eyebrows are relaxed, her lips slightly upturned.
All in due time, dear boy.
Her grin widens, sending shivers down my spine.
In several nights' times, I will gain knowledge beyond your imagination, an insight into the very fabric of our dark world. An associate of mine is nearing the end of his task, a task that heralds a new dawn. The end of your quest is nigh, but to that end I have to offer you a new bargain. I will share my knowledge with you, but only if you agree to accept it.
I do not remember the sensation of my mouth drying up in excitement, but I assume it resembles closely what I am experiencing now. So, obviously we want to know the truth about this. I reined in. I have to be careful. It's almost as if I'm Theon, on the verge of consumption by the Solomon of knowledge, blind to the potential fallout. And yet...
What are your terms? Worry not. I don't make you go against your beliefs. I just need you to keep the council engrossed in the matter of least boyish importance.
I allow myself to feel a small bout of relief and smile a little.
That shouldn't be prove very difficult. The council is already consumed by infighting instead of solving actual problems.
Ritra smirks, dangerously, showing rows of sharpened teeth.
That may well change soon. Very soon indeed. Make sure to steer them away from anything that might hinder my cause.
This time, when she turns away with a gentle swirl of a tulle, it's clear that the audience is over. With a gentle swish of a tulle. I nod at her and take my leave. Or I'm taken out of my leave, rather, and escorted back to the same RIB that brought me here nearly an hour ago. As we make our way towards the shore, I stare at the ship while longer, marveling, despite myself. It's a perfectly blend of low-key and lavish, always on the move, an impenetrable, inaccessible river fortress. It's no surprise Ritra chose this vessel as her base of operations. The fact that she never leaves its decks shrouds both the ship and the Hudson Dragoness herself in more mystique. This deliberate aura of mystery has sparked considerable speculation about her nature over the last year and a half. Even though I've been meeting with her regularly for months, she remains largely an enigma to me, aside from the fact that she must be one of, if not the most formidable kindred on the East Coast. One might think that only fools would deal with the devil, and normally I would concur. But if Ritra holds the key to the answers I've been chasing for the better half part of a century, the day star cometh, Fionn. Then I am prepared to walk Fionn's path, regardless of the cost. So, rebuke at Elysium. Like the White Rabbit, I am late, dreadfully late, for a very important date at Elysium, all because of Vitra's ostentatious displays of power. The Council's growing mistrust of me is going to deepen even more. The usually manageable traffic decides to betray me tonight, tacking on an extra 30 minutes to my journey and pushing my fashionably late arrival into a painfully rude territory. In moments like this, I cannot shake the feeling that Vitra is manipulating me, her fingers firmly wrapped around my throat, bending my destiny to her whims, as one does tender young branch. Struggling to put that thought aside, I arrive at the art hall in a sour mood. The council has the eerie ability to detect even the slightest hint of stress, which they will exploit, with all the subtlety of a ravenous bear mangling its prey. To further compound my irritation, one of Kadir's minions, my usual nemesis, guards the entrance to Elysium with his silent partner by his side.
Caitiff, what a surprise!
My buddy and I were placing bets on how late you'd roll up, man. If I knew you wouldn't care less, I'd have doubled that bet easily. Somehow, every word he utters manages to get on my nerves, no matter the topic. I pay them no mind and make my way to the entrance when suddenly a firm hand on my chest stops me cold.
You went on my say-so, trash.
Apologize like the good boy you are.
Let me through.
Ain't no way we're letting you just stroll in there. Gotta show some culture.
You could not spell culture if the letters came with handles. It's amazing you do not tip over from the sheer weight of ignorance you're lugging around. Now, kindly clear the path, or, great paragon of culture, I'll clear it through you.
He steps back with vacant retractions of his hand and a dumbfounded look. I tip an imaginary hat his way. The slight improves my mood. But the swift, soundless sway of the door to Elysium extinguishes the last flicker of my spirits. I have never harbored any affinity for modern art. It seems too loud, too chaotic, and often excessively abstract for my taste. Perhaps I'm old fashioned, or perhaps I'm simply too old. However, I have learned to appreciate the frequent exhibits at the art hall. Mostly out of necessity, my participation in discussions among the council members is minimal, so perhaps it was sheer boredom that eased my aversion, if ever so slightly. For instance, now would be an ideal moment to immerse myself in the extensive collection of street art on display, the latest and, for the moment, last exhibit before the gallery is temporarily closed under the pretense of renovation. For the past months, the space has undergone a significant transformation. The cavernous gallery, which used to echo with odd gasps inspired by the art, is now cluttered with equipment. The art hall has been converted into a makeshift command center by the order of Kadir, the local sheriff, and since a deafening silence befell the room the moment I stepped inside, there is nothing left for me but to look around and wait for the impending rebuke. I would much rather study the art pieces than endure the stern gazes of the council members, each laden with barely concealed disdain.
You must be setting some kind of record, mediator. An hour and a half late.
Kadir scoffs at me. His respect was never mine to claim, and judging by his unyielding expression, that door has now firmly shut. Take it on the chin.
Please, accept my sincerest apologies, esteemed members of the council. I assure you, this will not happen again.
Oh, dear guest, your friend, the Baron of the Bronze, has already made amendments on your behalf. Quite persistently, I might add, almost as if he foresaw this mediation role falling to himself. I shoot a glance at Torque. He can play it cool, but knowing him, he's fuming inside.
Your appearance has already thrown us off course. Assume your position and let's proceed without further interruption, unless you feel the need to mediate that proposition.
I nod, silently feigning remorse. Though there's little need to pretend, I genuinely detest being late.
As I was saying, another group of Duskburn was destroyed last night, including a few Chantry recorded alchemists. One onslaught has only escalated since Larson's final death 2 weeks ago. Oh, please, Aisling. Larson was naught but a laughingstock. I take a seat next to Torque, and he immediately leans closer, lowering his voice to a whisper that rumbles like distant thunder. What the actual fact, Pádraic? You took forever.
No one here knows about my little trip over the Hudson, not even Torque. It's likely that not even Vitra, closest allies, are aware of my involvement with her. That's why I always keep a handy excuse up my sleeve, one that's incredibly easy to conceal these days, though I wish it weren't necessary.
Well, I encountered the troublemakers again. Had to clean myself up before coming here. Damn, how many?
Just a couple of unprepared fanatics.
It's hardly an epic tale. I'm just a bit vexed that they helped me up. And you didn't think to mention it sooner? If anything could get Kadir off your back, it's that. Come on, Torque. Do you really believe he would buy that?
Torque gives me a look of mute understanding before he casts a sidelong glance at Kadir. Given the sheriff's interest in the hunter threat, I suspect he would question me about it rigorously, and I cannot risk losing grip on my tall tales.
Look, I get these nights are hard, but you've got to step it up, Pádraic. You're making me look bad in front of the council, and our truce is already hanging by a thread. Fuck that mutt. Who the hell does he think he is? I know. I'm sorry about that.
I listen in on the usual bickering of the meetings, but soon enough my mind begins to drift. We're well beyond the administrative stuff, for which I am thankful. That's when I'm usually the least welcome and often pointlessly asked to step outside the walls of Elysium. pointedly asked. Still, I have drawn some conclusions about the current power struggle within the local Camarilla. In short, Edison Payne is making a play for Prince Payneheart's position, as her indecisiveness in the face of the current threat keeps undermining her influence. But that is the tip of the iceberg, noticeable even from as far as my provincian require me to stand. Far away as my provenience requires me to stand. The root of her problems seems to be the continued fallout from Douglas Callahan's final death. From what I can tell, the former Anak Baron, with whom she had a blood bond, was too deep in a risky game and got burnt badly. The attempt to cover it up as suicide would have succeeded if it hadn't been for Julia Sovinsky throwing a wrench in the works. She exposed the scheme, revealing Carter van der Weyden, the former Malkavian Primogen, as the mastermind behind the murder. Somehow, it never sat right with me. Knowing the court members better now, I am fairly certain van der Weyden was framed, although specifically why and by whom remains a mystery. Still, Julia's ascension to a somber Primogen appears too swift to be merely a chance. Torque has told me only so much, and I choose not to dig deeper. Letting bygones be bygones, I get the feeling it's a sensitive subject for him. Not from any moral compulsion, of course, but because he was somewhat involved in Callahan's demise. That naturally brings me to the conclusion that either he has something on Penhart, or vice versa. Otherwise, his presence here wouldn't be accepted, or should I say, tolerated, and maintaining the shaky truth between the Camarilla and Anarchs would be even tougher these nights. Yet as Penhart's support continues to erode, strikingly so in the case of Arturo, a man otherwise known only for his long-standing influence on the prince, Torque's sway is in his rapid decline. And when about 6 months ago, the hunter anomaly appeared completely out of the blue, setting off a downward spiral. I snap out of these musings, only to discover that the topic at hand is entirely related to my thoughts. It's the usual interplay between two factions. Kadir pushes for aggressive actions against the hunters, while Penhart, belittling the sheriff's confrontational stance, advocates for dialogue with Ritra, a tactic that has yet to produce any favorable outcomes. This stalemate seems to be stretching on and on. I lean in close and whisper to Torque. How long has this been going on? Maybe 2 hours. Honestly, I can't even tell anymore. It's endless and fruitless as usual. Suddenly, the bickering halts abruptly, like a knife slicing through the tension in the room. For a brief moment, I worry that I have just made my second and likely final mistake of the evening. Fortunately, their glances are directed elsewhere and not at me. I wait, hoping someone will break the uneasy silence. What exactly are you implying, Sheriff? What kind of new lead are we talking about here? Last night, with Valerie's assistance, we ruled out the possibility that the SAD or any other federal agencies tied to the Second Inquisition are behind this aggression. Regrettably, whoever orchestrating the operations remains a mystery. I must say, this hardly qualifies as a lead. It's more like a monumental setback. Perhaps. However, there has been another development. We suspect that a party from outside New York involves in the arms trade directly supplying the hunters with equipment. This party is a member of the Ravnos clan. A ripple of unease spread through the room. How very fortuitous of you, Kadir, to uncover such vital information at such an opportune moment. There was some fortune in how we came up about this intelligence, I admit. Specifically, we accidentally intercepted a shipment filled with firearms. The shipment had almost no traceable marks,
The driver, a ghoul, only knew about the intermediate stops and provided no clues about the final recipient. Sounds like an onion routing to me, honestly. Perhaps, but we managed to loosen the driver's tongue enough to force a name out of him. Reinhard Ksell. One of us, one of us. I pay close attention as the room falls quiet. The sheriff milks the silence masterfully, like a seasoned thespian. Even I have to admit that is impressive. Our research on Cassell suggests he's a somewhat obscure con artist and a part-time blood dealer who specializes in acquiring specific blood resonances. His name has surfaced in a couple of reports over recent years, and yet until now, his scheme seemed irrelevant to our operations. If this Cassell has indeed been trading blood beyond our oversight, the circulatory system would certainly be aware of it. Well, I've got multiple confirmations on that story from different sources. And, really, I think ignoring a potential clue just because your drone screwed up in their records pane is pretty damn foolish. Considering the scent information available on Cassell, based on what we know now, I'd say he's quite adept at staying off the grid. The name doesn't ring a bell. I wonder if Mato knows something about this Ravnos crook, but even if he does, he probably wouldn't talk about it, haunting past and all. In any case, one thing is certain. There is a kindred actively stoking the fires of war by supplying our enemies with military-grade equipment. The evidence we've compiled on Cassell might be circumstantial, but when you take a step back, it does add up. I'm convinced that Cassell is the key to exposing the brains behind the Hunter involvement. It sounds too good to be true, yet despite my reservations about Kadir, he is usually on point. Forgive me, Kadir, but all of that sounds like wishful thinking. How does a nobody from nowhere suddenly rise to warlord status just like that? Most crucially, why hasn't he been apprehended yet? We've been on his tail for a couple of nights now, but he continues to elude us. As for his motives, we may be close to uncovering them. Stop with the mystery, Sheriff, and give us something substantial. The way Kadir levels Arturio with a look, I would rather not find myself on the receiving end of that gaze. We've learned that Cassell's child recently surfaced in New York. Valerie was tasked with delivering her to the council. She should be escorting her to Elysium as we speak. You choose not to disclose this because Arturio unceremoniously interrupts the prince. I squint at him with surprise. With his sophisticated manners, such uncouth behavior is highly irregular. What a true insight would the child of a trickster possibly offer? Dishonesty is their clan's trait. It's doubtful she knows anything of Cassell's schemes, and if she does, she's likely to feed us with lies. That's a remarkably astute observation from you, Arturio. I'm genuinely surprised. However, that's not the reason I'm bringing her in. My plan is to squeeze her until she spills her guts on the Kreis, or her Kreis lure Cassell out from wherever he's hiding. A common commotion rises, and Bernard gets onto her feet. Have you finished weaving your fantasies, Kadir? Because I can't entertain these delusions any longer. We've already lost too much time on this while the true crisis goes unaddressed. It isn't me who's delusional, Prince. Or should I remind you of your own lapses in judgment? The bickering erupts once more. I tune it out and lean closer to Torque. I must say, it all sounds preposterous. It most certainly does. And yet, it's a move that might just help us clear out the bastards. We've been escalating their attacks on our turf, and it's not just blindly charging into the night, looking for clashes, the way Kadir loves to. The front door opens with a sudden, yet graceful swing. It's Valerie, with another kindred in tow. Must be none other than Cassel's child. The girl is a peculiar sight, petite, dressed in what I can only describe as questionable fashionable rags. She scans the room with eyes of someone calculating her quickest exit. Understandable given the circumstances. I glance at the council members, but they are too wrapped up in their fervent argument to notice the newcomers. Valerie doesn't seem eager to interrupt either. Wouldn't have been such an issue if we had taken action when the signs were as glaringly obvious. If only the rest of us were blessed with your profound gift of foresight, Sheriff, and life would be a walk in the park. Allow me to emphasize, our risks aren't limited to a single front. Acting on the gut feeling might work wonders in motion pictures. Here, in the real world, it is a different story. Spare me the pretense of ignorance, Arturio. The pattern was unmistakable. Well over a month ago. Now, little bitch, bad news is that she's a liar, liar, liar. Upon closer look, Cassel's child looks wholly innocuous. Hardly the type you would associate with any kind of hostile activity, but something about her unsettles me. A feeling I can't quite put into words. My ring is spinning before I even acknowledge the need to do so. Your playful decision to allow the Thinbloods to appoint Larson as their primogen raises his final death to a level that can't be casually swept under the rug, Helen. Thin-blooded or not, it throws into question our grip on the situation. What would you have me do then? Unleash our dear sheriff without adequate reconnaissance, just on the name of haste? We can't overlook his excessive efficiency in the last skirmish, can we? Doesn't the prospect of a masquerade breach give you pause? I sense Torque shifting next to me, his arm brushing mine. He's visibly agitated, the ongoing argument clearly getting under his skin. I figure we're all fond of keeping things the way they are. But there's times to just sit back and think. And then there's times when you gotta step up and do something bold. This feels like it's time to make a move. An anarch championing chaos. A revelation that somehow fails to astonish, esteemed Baron of the Bronx. I steal another glance at the girl. There's a look in her eyes that suggests she knows she's in a tight spot. But does she understand the full extent of the game being played around her? And how little importance the players attach to pawns like her? If deception is indeed a hallmark of her clan, she might. Nevertheless, I can't help but feel a twinkle of pity for her, aware as I am of the daunting presence the council can exert, pressure the council can exert. The asking is yours, Fionn. Better to rip the band-aid off. We will be here all night if I don't steer their focus her way. My apologies for interrupting, Mr. Payne, but it appears Miss Duval has brought forth the issue you were mentioning earlier. It might be wise to ensure she's not exposed to unnecessary information. Yes, thank you for the shrewd observation, Caitiff. She hurls those words at me like a snake spitting venom. I wonder, would her attitude change if she knew I wasn't truly caitiff? Esteemed council, I give you the troublesome ravenous neonate. I gather you all desire a swift resolution on this matter? Her disruptions have been minimal thus far. Let us hope that trend continues.
Finally, their eyes shift to the matter at hand.
I understand the formal necessity of addressing all this as well as my role in the matter. However, there are more pressing concerns demanding attention. Far more pressing.
Shall we discard all traditions too while we're at it? We've pirouetted around the Hudson problem for more than a year, yet progress remains as stale as our debate. Certainly a few additional moments to honor the very laws you spearheaded so vigorously couldn't hurt, would they?
The Hudson is a completely different beast, as you're well aware. We need to address the locust swarm engulfing New York before Camaria's entire framework crumbles beneath its weight. And how does that sit with you, Payne? Just last night, 2 Duskborn and the fledgling from your clan were reduced to the ashes, and we're still in the dark about who's pulling the strings. Shouldn't that worry you more than policing the purity of the red market?
In principle, I agree, Sheriff. However, would we continue to disregard even minor infractions, we broadcast a message of vulnerability. Vulnerability threatens our efforts within and beyond our borders, efforts we plan to carry on without interruption once the locust swarm, as you've termed it, is eradicated. I can't believe I'm saying it, but I'm inclined to agree with the Grahams on this one. We can't simply let something like this slip through the cracks without taking proper measures. So you're assuming the role of his advocate now. Quite the bold ascent up the ladder of your own making, Julia. What's next on the horizon? Another hostile...
Enough already.
An uneasy silence falls over the room. Everyone automatically slips into their accustomed roles. A month ago, I might have speculated that their reaction were purely theatrical, honed through the years of political maneuvering, but right now I have little certainty. Perhaps they are genuinely unsettled. When the prince finally manages to speak, her voice lacks the confidence you'd anticipate from someone at the helm. I sense she's not just putting on an act.
We're all here for the same reason.
You are, Ailing. Or am I mistaken and you forget where your loyalties lie? Now, let's put this issue to rest here now. Strive for brevity, Sheriff.
Understood. Kali of Clan Rathnos, you stand accused of violating the New York Camaria's praxis, infringing on the tradition of hospitality, and endangering the Masquerade, among other things.
Wait, on what grounds?
Drop the act. There is a wealth of evidence in the recreational vehicle of yours, most of it confirming the suspicion we've been harboring over the recent months. Petty theft from your subjects, impersonating of another kindred, lineage forgery. Need I go on? But your involvement in large-scale blood and mortal trafficking outside our scrutiny and the jurisdiction of the circulatory system is as obvious as it was dangerous for the stability of our domain, especially with our clientele often being in direct hostility with our interests, as Primogen Payne was kind enough to confirm. While some might chalk this up to colossal stupidity, I am neither so forgiving nor tolerant of fraudsters who respect nothing but their own gain.
I settle in, waiting for the drama to unfold. I'm generally curious how this Raven girl would handle the questioning. What intricate web of lies, what complex, multi-layered stories she might spin just to save herself from the council.
This is not the time to be quiet, Raven.
This is total crap. I don't even own that RV. I snagged it from a rental box in this honor guy in the Bronx.
Oh, you did, huh? What are the odds, right?
See, why won't you grill the Baron friend over there? I wince at the blatant lie. shooting Torg a questioning glance, but he just rolls his yellow eyes with impatience. Well, there was an attempt, I suppose.
I earnestly hope you're not taking me for a fool. That would be a misstep of monumental proportions, unlike anything else these walls have witnessed.
Out of the corner of my eye, I catch a glimpse of the Tremere region silently mouthing what appears to be, "I beg to differ," and it would be hard to disagree. Suddenly, the air is thick with tension. I catch Torque's eye as he looks at me. Kadir has had enough with this girl's attempt to weave her falsehood. A curved sword swiftly materializes in his hand, plucked out of thin air.
I am not here for your games, little Raven. Choose your next words carefully.
I'd argue this utter lunacy clears her of any charges. She couldn't even cobble together a feeble story, much less orchestrate a clandestine trading of this magnitude. And yarn spinning is supposed to be your clan's forte, isn't it? Last chance, my dear. Is there anything of substance you wish to add? There's a certain toughness in her demeanor. I look at her intently, her struggle as clear as the first snow of winter. I wonder if there's more to her than meets the eye. That's got her intent, yeah. I try to remain motionless, still as a shadow on the windless night, and fix my gaze on the Raven. Her eyes look beyond what's visible, distant, deep. Yet the only thing I manage to discern is a profound, internal conflict, hidden beneath the surface. Guess there's not much point in playing dumb, huh?
Couldn't agree more.
Alright then. So, I indeed am tangled up in this little blood trafficking operations, playing a pretty crucial part, if I do say so myself, though I guess not everyone's on board with that assessment. I do the logistics, pushing merchandise through the series of dark web channels. Every eyebrow in the room goes up, with the exception of Julia, whose lips curve into a slight smirk. All totally secure and anonymous. No slips about, our thing. Everything's masked by the hustle of more mundane black markets. No way we're blowing the Masquerade. We deal in stored blood, as you might have caught on. Not just any blood, though. Our merch is a little chest up, thaumaturgically enhanced to be exact. It's the only way they'd work, as you're well aware. Right, of course. Oh, and also deal in, let's just call them family treasures, but honestly, that's more like a psychic than anything serious. But we're extremely careful about picking our clients and really thorough when it comes to making deals, the traditions and all. I was sure we'd never even come close to breaking them. At least that's what he led me to believe. The girl's voice drops, heavy with faux trauma. I had a hunch. There were some dodgy dealings in this more secret ventures. To deny that would be a flat-out lie, but let's be real, I'm way outside of the inner circle to have a real sway in these parts of his enterprise. An uneasy silence sweeps over the room, for the brief moment theatrically at its best. It's a bit weird, this sentence, this middle one. I had a hunch there was some dodgy dealings. Who's saying that? Is that Kadi's inner thoughts? His enterprise? Is this a joke? Exactly who is this he you're referring to? I presumed you knew it was all my sire who's masquerading it all. The room is soon filled with muted whispers after the shocking revelation. I refrain from joining the murmuring crowd just yet. Indeed, how fortuitous, and your sire would be.
There's only one other notable rogue in the city who comes close to mind. Someone dipping in and out, known for their shifty nature, of which I was somewhat aware. Reynard Cassell.
You nailed it Chief, sir. Another brief moment of silence gets interrupted by Julia, who decides to throw her 2 cents in the fray. I can practically hear the cogs turning in your head, Kadir. What's your take on it? Truth be told, it does add up. Though, I had him pegged more as a con artist than a trafficker. Then why hasn't he been apprehended, Sheriff? Are you secretly endorsing activities that impede the circulatory system's operations? For your own good, Bane. I'll pretend I didn't catch that. Or would you care to question my dedication to your cause again? Be warned, my patient wears extremely thin these nights. Can we put this bickering on hold, at least for the moment? One more thing. Reynard and I had a meeting lined up with a client a few hours back, but he never showed up. In the whole year and a half I've been in this gig, he's never just vanished like that. And what do you make of it? To be honest, I'm not sure. But now that I think of it, he's changed over the past month. Become more erratic than usual. Ready for my theory? I'm pretty sure he caught wind of your lot and decided to feed me to the flames while he made a run for it. I can't quite explain it, but there's an authenticity in how she constructs her story. Not every single word, perhaps, but the overall intent feels genuine, honest. Shut up, liar, liar, pants on fire. I believe she truly doesn't know where Cassell is, and it's tearing her apart. Let her burn. She'll burn to a crisp like a piece of trash. Kadir's approach just doesn't sit right with me, but not the way he envisions it. She is the key. An unwitting pawn betrayed by her master. A likely story. Suitable for the stage indeed, but in this context, this just will not do at all. If I may. Damn it, Pádraic. Don't go getting yourself into... I ignore Torque, to my future detriment, most likely. In an instant, the top echelon of New York's kindred fixed their eyes onto mine with unmistakable hostility. Since you're already disrupting the proceedings, you might as well say your piece, mediator. Very well, then. I'm inclined to believe her, at least in the aspects most significant to the interest of our allies. As ever, your assertion remains devoid of substance. My guy's advice is pretty much always on point. His track record speaks for itself. I give Torque a grateful look, but he doesn't return it. I am definitely in for a tongue-lashing later. That much is clear. The sheriff has a point that seems to hold water. Her sire might just be the one at fault. She is essentially a non-entity, is she not? A nobody that slipped through the radar until, by a stroke of sheer bad luck, she got caught red-handed. To excuse the pun. When you give it another look, the evidence you have collected should indeed back up that claim quite convincingly. And what grounds your intricate evaluation precisely? My judgment is shaped by your vast experience and simply tempered by reasoning and intuition. It changes little regarding the consequences she must face for her complicity in her sire's crimes. How about I serve you, Reynard's head on a silver platter in exchange for mine, unscathed on my shoulders? Kadir glares at the girl with a look that could kill, something that happens far too often these nights, but at least he lets her speak. I know all his secret spots in this town, plus the spots he wouldn't touch with a 10-foot pole. I'm wired into his network, his contacts. I've got his playbook down, and I can stay one step ahead of him with ease. Just give me a chance, and we will all be thanking our lucky stars by the end. A quiet introspection befalls the room. It is apparent that opinions are split, yet gradually it seems the consensus is shifting in favor of the girl's proposal. I give myself an imaginary pat on the back. I have reservations about this daring proposition. Consider the potential fallout if this entire situation spirals out of control. Kadir throws up his head, clearly having reached a decision. I cannot suppress a smirk at how I disrupted their plans with barely a flick of my wrist. Quite the mediator I am, really. Capturing this whelp proved hardly a challenge. I wouldn't sweat the idea of catching her again. What's more, entrusting her with Cassell resolves two issues at once. It swiftly eliminates her presence and enabled us to prioritize genuine concerns. But someone has to keep a constant watch over her. Burry, perhaps one of yours. How about him? It takes me a moment to notice the ravenous girl pointing directly at me, and even longer to realize the implications. Stupid, stupid, stupid. My eyes quickly sweep over the council members, catching the faint smirks on their faces. This cannot. Surely you're not considering. This could play out quite favorably, I must admit. Quite favorable, indeed. Bollocks. Very well. Pádraic, Convoy. I hereby appoint you as the agent caretaker for this ravenous neonate. I hate to break it to you, Sheriff, but this call is out of your turf. He's with us Anarchs, and you know it well enough. Technically, when he took on the whole peacemaker role for our clique, he acquired a level of neutrality, so yeah. None of this matters, I realize as soon as Kadir redirects his gaze at me. Your responsibility is to ensure she fulfills her assignment within 4 nights, starting now. Any slip-ups on her end will reflect on your record as well. Do we have an understanding? I nod in resignation. Clearly, the situation has moved beyond my control now. Stupid little petty fucking moron. 4 nights, not long at all, yet they stretch out like an eternity ahead of me. This arrangement might also hamper my visit to Vidra. Now, back to where we were. I suppose all I can do is grit my teeth and do my best to track Cassell down. The sooner I get down to it, the faster I'll be able to return to my own agenda. And I doubt this girl will be much help. Unless, of course, the ravenous trickster turns out to be a wild card. So, and here we will conclude our first episode. See you next time. Take care.